3 days of inspiration, content, and connections with fellow executive women at leading retailers and brands. You can't miss the 2021 Women in Retail Leadership Summit. Connect with and learn from inspirational women leaders at this exclusive boutique event from October 11th to the 13th. The safety of our attendees is our number one priority. Go to womeninretailsummit.com for our full event safety plan and to register to attend. We can't wait to see you there.
Hello and welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Marie Albajez, the Senior Editor of Women in Retail Leadership Circle. Today I am joined by Betsy Fore and Sophia Laurel, the co-founders of Tiny Organics, a company that makes and delivers 100% organic, plant-based baby and toddler meals. In this episode, we discuss Tiny Organics' sustainability practices, why adventurous eating for children is so important, and the challenges that working moms face. Betsy and Sophia, I'm so glad you're joining me today. Welcome.
We're thrilled to be here.
Thanks so much.
So you guys both have a background in business, as I understand it. And Betsy, you're kind of more on the product development side, and Sophia on the marketing and PR side. But I imagine that research was a huge component of your Tiny Organics products. So if you could just start by telling me how you guys found each other and how you came up with the idea of Tiny Organics.
Great, I can start. This is Sophia. So Betsy and I had actually known each other for years prior, but came together quite a few years ago now, but we always joke that the best things happen at rooftop parties, and we came together at a rooftop party in New York. And we had, my background is in marketing and communications, and we had kind of started researching the history of food systems and researching the history of baby food in particular, and realized that it's a fully invented category in the 1920s. And, human beings have an innate preference of sweet foods as it is. And realized that we could kind of come together and have the biggest impact in childhood development through food, and also shape the palates of children to prefer and love vegetables and kind of healthy flavors from the earliest days. And when we founded Tiny, we had a group of 100 founding families, some of whom are still Tiny customers, and we really did kind of rigorous testing and realized there is a white space in this category, especially with savory forward foods. We also lean into a movement called baby-led weaning, which is from a European movement. I'm originally from Finland and kind of ate real whole foods back home, but it's not just Finland, it's China, India, everywhere around the world. Children are starting their food journeys with real whole foods, and the movement is all around introducing children to foods, letting them, smell and taste and touch the foods and really familiarize themselves with these healthier flavors. And there's some developmental benefits as well. And really it's similar to like a Montessori movement. So that's kind of the very early founding story. And then obviously now the rest is Tiny history and where we are today, but really we wouldn't be here without our founding families and founding little ones.
Yeah, I love the idea that you saw this problem that wasn't really in your wheelhouse before, but you kind of identified the problem and went from there. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the 100 founding families, how you came up with that concept, and what kind of feedback they provided for you in those early stages. Betsy, can you touch on that a little bit more?
Definitely, happy to. We, as Sophia mentioned, would not be here without the 100 founding families. To kind of back way up on my background as a serial entrepreneur and having, with my last company, also done something similar where you're just trying to build for the customer from the earliest days and let that dictate your entire product roadmap. I was fortunate to be having my son being born as Tiny was being born. So that was also just an incredible insight that we had, working in our favor. when this was, of course, pre-pandemic, but we'd sent one email out to the Park Slope parent group in Brooklyn, New York, and we had hundreds of inbounds for parents wanting to be a founding family with us and be on this journey to trying to provide real whole foods to their babies and a baby-led weaning approach. So we had to cap it at 100 within a matter of hours. And then Sophia and I were wheeling out these massive blue coolers into Prospect Park. I was actually 8 months pregnant in 90-degree heat. And, they were, and what was so profound to us is that these families were feeding, food from complete strangers to their babies, right in front of us and their toddlers. And we knew that we had really struck a chord and there was a big white space and families really in need of real whole food offerings that are not puree options, which we just couldn't find on the market at the time. And so to Sophia's point, earlier, we feel this is how humans and we're born to eat, right? Real whole foods. And so we couldn't understand why, obviously it's been in the American mentality and market for years. And the way I grew up eating as well, kind of on the sugar roller coaster, if you will, where you're introduced to these fruit purees from the very beginning. And then you create a sugary forward palate as opposed to a savory forward one. So when we looked at the market, only 10% of children get the recommended amount of vegetables, and majority of that is through French fries. So we thought, right, we are on a mission now. We've got to make a change to make vegetables fun and accessible for children from the earliest days, because there is this point called the flavor window from the age of 4 to 7 months where a child's more keen than they ever are in their whole life to experience new flavors. And if we can capture them with vegetables early on, what a difference that can make for their gut health overall, like in their life. Being plant-based myself for over 15 years, I know the joy firsthand of living that plant-based diet and how these savory greens and, really exciting different flavors from around the world, honestly, can expose and expand the palate and create and build you into the healthiest version of yourself. And that's truly what we want for an entire generation of children, to be able to grow up to be the healthiest versions because they have an understanding of their own gut health from the earliest days.
Did you have any idea that there would be such demand for this at an early stage when you had, when you opened it up to those founding families? Obviously you had done your research, but did you have any idea of how excited and intrigued these parents were for something like this?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Marie, because, when I founded my last company, I self-funded it and then I got a $50K grant, to get it off the ground. This company was very different, right? Where we partnered with Human Ventures from really day one. So we were kind of going through this Google Sprint type model with them and being pre-seed funded to sort of get to that point of saying hey, this is a real need. Even prior to us putting that email out there, we sort of realized and had done we'd spoken to hundreds of parents prior to that point, doing these focus groups at Human Ventures old offices to develop, these theories around okay, this really is a white space and it's something that parents will want and need. But I think the real magic of what we did here is not necessarily that initial demand of oh yes, I want this. It's that we developed the entire product roadmap with those 100 founding families. So we knew it's what they want and need, right? So we would trial 5 to 7 different versions of every hero recipe with these families. And then they were the reason that we went totally plastic free. And we're the first food D2C brand to do so on the market, because we're not just better for animal well-being with being totally vegan, but better for the planet as well. And so I think that this is critical, right? That these founding families really were along that journey with us, building the company from the very beginning.
Yeah, I love that. And I do want to talk about your sustainability practices in a bit, but Sophia, I wanted to kind of get your perspective. Maybe you could expand on this a little bit. As someone who was raised in a European household, as I was, my family's French. And so, seeing the American children's eating habits versus European kids, how did that kind of help shape the products that you guys put together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think yourself as well, growing up, it's definitely different. But at the same time, we see an opportunity as well here, which is kind of what we're building towards too. So yeah, the way I grew up, as mentioned, my parents always say it wasn't called baby-led weaning at the time, but what we're trying to build here is really this idea of how do we introduce, to Betsy's point earlier, vegetables and healthy flavors in a friendly and fun way? And there's, a lot of exciting things we've already done around that. One of them being the funny and punny names that we have for vegetables. And, we, for our meals, and, we know that, the palate is actually shaped, and so much of it is, how we learn to eat. There's a great book called First Bite, which is all about this. And so much of it is like a fully sensory experience as well. So essentially, if you allow your child to discover new flavors and really discover the joy of eating, for the first time and beyond, there's real magic to it, as we always say. And, for us to that, combining or allowing your child to engage all their five senses and making the that moment fun and exciting. And for us with Tiny, we hear from our parents all the time where convenience is a big part of it. So with our foods, there isn't really no prep required, but all you need to do is heat the food. It's made fresh and shipped frozen. And that also brings in kind of that smell and one of the senses. But I think for us, we really want to make sure that the parents, and we're only in the US currently, but want to make sure that the parents are, also enjoying that moment of really, because it's a really special moment when you introduce solids to your child for the first time. But I think for us, definitely, I think we've seen a big change in the US recently with baby-led weaning, with overall just also our taste preference is changing in the last 10, 20 years, and we're really happy to see that. But definitely I'm excited to bring all these flavors from around the world, including we had a baby borscht, which is more of a Russian recipe, but we did have a baby borscht on the menu for a moment. We do have a recipe with beets as well. Oh, wow. But we're really excited to be introducing different cultures through food in a friendly and fun way.
Yeah, I love the names that you've given certain meals. And I was going to say, I think this is something that parents, it consumes a lot of parents' thoughts, right? I became a stepmom a few years ago, and I know that, meal times, every meal is just a struggle. My stepdaughter is almost 4. And so I'm sure, you guys both have young children, I believe. I'm sure that you've struggled with it as well. So I'm curious what kind of reviews you get on the Tiny Organics products from your own kids.
Absolutely. So as mentioned, my son was born as Tiny was being born. So he was actually our first, flavor tester on most of these recipes. He's been eating Tiny since he was 5 months old, and now he's almost 3 every single day. So it's like there's only been maybe a few days during that whole last, couple of years that he hasn't had a Tiny. And so he actually requests it. And I noticed that he does prefer vegetables. He doesn't eat, kind of sugary things or crave those or want them. And I do credit this to Tiny, right? Because of every cup being over 80% vegetables. So your child's getting their daily recommended portion of vegetables in each 4-ounce cup, which is just tremendous. We're the only company on the market to do that. And it's how we were able to partner with Michelle Obama on her Shaping Early Palates initiative for veggies early and often, which is a little icon that we helped create with our Tiny in-house team to signify on these products, especially at retail. So set a new baby industry standard to say this is a vegetable forward product where it has over 50% vegetables in it and no more than 5 grams of natural sugars. And so all of our products, if you look at any of the Puree competitive set, some of them have up to 30 grams of, even though they're natural, but it's still sugar. With Tiny, you will never find more than 5 grams. And so this is something that we really lean into as well. And that's why I believe my son actually doesn't have a sweet tooth in that way, because, even as he got older, he was eating Tiny as a full meal up until about maybe 16 months. And then after that, it's a healthy side or a snack, right? With his protein at every meal. And so just knowing and that peace of mind that I'm getting him the full portion of vegetables each day was like this massive mom win as well. And so I think, for us, it's just been a really beautiful journey. It's actually the only way he knows how to spell Tiny as well. And he knows when he sees it, it's so sweet. But he knows their names, and he'll request which one and stuff. So it's just been a joy to get to like experience his love of plants because of Tiny.
And I was going to add too, like we talk to our parents every day, of course, and we get a lot of user generated amazing content, and we're fortunate to be in this space. So we see a lot of amazing moments of joy when children are eating Tiny. And I wanted to read out one quote from one of our moms, Julie, and she says, "It's made all the difference in establishing and expanding my youngest child's palate and eating habits. As a full-time working mom, I had literally no time to cook, and I wish we had Tiny with my first child, who is the stereotypical beige food picky eater." So I think that's the other thing that we really cherish and welcome all this feedback from our parents as well. And as mentioned, most of our parents are working full time, even with COVID. Really, the Tiny really feels a real need there, especially like during weekdays, those lunches and dinners when you have no time or energy to cook or make healthy meals.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, the working moms, because you guys are working moms. You probably have a lot of customers who are working moms, and I want to ask what, beyond the struggle of feeding your kids daily and making sure they have all of the adequate nutrients. What would you say? What have you noticed are some of the biggest challenging that are facing women and particularly working moms in the workforce right now?
Yeah, I think for Tiny, we've really set the hopefully new industry standard in terms of family benefits, like internally within our company. So we actually are one of the only employers we know to have a family planning stipend as well as childcare provided. And that's not like in-house childcare. That's, that's in support of moms that work with us, right? To whatever childcare they would choose up to the age of 5. So that's just one kind of small way that we're trying to really change the paradigm, and also giving as much paternity leave as maternity leave, right? We believe this is a really big win within the industry to get, women kind of on that same playing field. Up until recently, we were a team of all women. And so we just have to be the change that we want to see and to make, right? A lot of these policies and laws aren't even in place yet at all. So we're having to literally write the rule book on what that looks like to empower women in the workforce. But I think with Tiny in particular, we're in terms of like the pandemic, just really shining a light on all of this, right? With moms not being able to have that support that they so desperately need. So to Sophia's point earlier, we just feel so grateful to have been meeting a real need throughout this whole time, because we launched in January of 2020. And then we saw just this massive, uptick and traction in higher numbers we could ever have fathomed, right? Because we were meeting that need for parents, where it's 3 minutes from freezer to high chair, right? For our foods. And that you're getting the cleanest, most, organic, all vegan, vegetable focused first foods. So I think just that peace of mind for the parent has been tremendous. And, we hear it from our moms all the time, as the quote Sophia just read as well, which is a great one. We're just thrilled to, be able to really help and to meet their needs, and to, give them that time back, because as we all know, as working moms, it's like you're a mom, but you're also trying to do, your work as well. And just that fine, balance of it all. Like that's where we kind of meet mom and be able to empower her to do so through taking this off of her plate.
Yeah, I'm curious, if you could talk a little bit, maybe Sophia, about your working habits. You both have probably spent some time in working for companies that are kind of male dominated, or that are mostly run by men. What was it like to kind of pivot from that kind of environment to having an almost all female team? Have you noticed kind of your leadership style change at all?
It's a very interesting question. Yeah, so prior to Tiny, I was running marketing and PR at a research foundation, and we were doing research as to why women and minorities haven't risen to the corporate boards in the US. And obviously, the situation is better in 2021 than it was a few years ago. But, we always talk about the importance of, diversity of thought, experiences, viewpoints. And I think for us, as Betsy mentioned, we did make our first male hire. And for us, for us on the board and on the investor side, it was important for us to have at least 50-50, gender parity, but also, diversity of different backgrounds. And, we feel like investors and customers are increasingly appreciating it as a core focus area. And I think the value in us as founders who don't necessarily look like the typical founder. Like, I'm an immigrant and Betsy's from a town of 300 people, and I think people are increasingly understanding the competitive advantage that can bring. But I think for us, it's been actually one of the most gratifying pieces of building Tiny, seeing kind of the growth that our team has had. And we do a lot of, like, when we can, even if it's virtual, but we do a lot of fun, like, happy hours and make sure we spend time with the team as well. And just seeing how much they've grown in the last, 2+ years, it's really a joy to see. But I think for Betsy and I both, we have a lot of empathy. And I think that just shines through. And, I just think I'm happy to see the recent just kind of progress that I think we've made in the workplace. And if you look at workforce in the future, the makeup of corporate America in particular will look very different in the next, 20, 30, 40 years. So it's great to see people appreciating. And by the way, if you look at the research, business results are better as well with more diverse teams. So I know for Betsy and I both, we've always wanted to solve big human challenges. And I think this is a great one, solving the way, children eat, and also building this as a mainly female badass team has been really definitely my biggest achievement to date. So it's great to see.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of kind of battling massive human challenges, I wanted to ask you about your sustainability practices as it relates to your packaging and the way that you source food. You mentioned that was something that your founding families said was really important to them. So Betsy, can you elaborate on what your sustainability practices look like?
Absolutely. This was so core to how we built Tiny. As mentioned, with the 100 founding families, they really, dug into every ingredient. And we love that because Tiny was founded on 100 first ingredients, like 100 first flavors is what we introduced to your baby or toddler. And so we have owned that supply chain from the very beginning, pre-pandemic, to where we would actually be at the farms, right? Sophia and I have met the farmers, and we know the soil that our ingredients are coming from. We've built up this really incredible, robust supply chain of those 100 first flavors. And then the packaging just speaks to that as well. So within every department of the business, we're trying to be as sustainable as possible. And we're the first, food DC brand, and definitely in our competitive landscape, to go completely plastic free. So we actually have aluminum tops now on our cups, and just super thrilled with all the progress we've been able to make in that direction, because it's just honestly table stakes now, right? We have to be the change we want to see, and we have to protect this earth, for the generations to come. And so, really, really amazing to understand, like, from the very beginning, sort of, having that DNA of the company and how we could execute on it in terms of our values.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So what's next for you guys and for Tiny Organics? I know you recently raised $11 million in investor funding. So what can we expect from Tiny Organics in 2022 and kind of beyond?
Yeah, this is Betsy. We're absolutely hiring right now. So as mentioned, we, have been extremely stealth team up to this point, and we're just growing tremendously, and so thrilled with the folks we've brought around the table. We are launching new product lines as well that we're super excited about, and really investing on the technology piece of what we're doing, which is so much of our backgrounds. My last company was building a pet tech platform for dogs to, get them down to their goal weight. And so for me, like, I absolutely want to see this for babies as well, which we've already, platformed and will continue to build out, where a child could have an understanding of their own gut health as they grow up, right? And how certain foods make them feel. But also just a fun way for parents to collect these 100 flavors, right? In like a profile view. So with us being a D2C brand first, I think, leaning in, as we always have, heavily to the technology piece, and that's what we know and come from, but we're also going to be expanding into retail in the next year. So very excited about that. Our North Star at Tiny is to get onto WIC, which is the food stamp for women, infant, and children that over half of babies in America are fed on. So we absolutely know we have to provide that accessibility through retail in order to achieve this. And we want to bring, this healthy, organic food, first foods, right, to babies all across the nation.
Oh, that's great. I so look forward to seeing what you guys make of this. My last question to you both is, can you share any tips for other women who have a great idea for a product or company, but they're not sure where to start?
I think a couple of tips that we've, learned along the way. One of them is obviously around networks, kind of to build networks and build relationships now, like not to wait until you need them. I think that's been really transformative in both of our careers. And I think, like we were saying, for us, entrepreneurship is really about recognizing opportunities and trying to create meaningful impact in the world. And, when you do have an idea or you recognize an opportunity, I think speed is really of the essence. And if you are fundraising, try to look for investors that bring strategic value and different types of perspectives, like we were saying earlier, and advice, and not just capital. And I think that's what we had, right, which is, we feel very fortunate again to have had true partners along the journey with us. And then just really believe in what you're building. I mean, for us, as mentioned, we really had to forge our own paths. Didn't come from, maybe the typical backgrounds in terms of entrepreneurs. And I think that gives you the confidence to kind of keep going. And I think also you kind of only learn by doing. So I think also starting is something that I think, not to wait until you start, I think is important one as well. Like, don't wait until it's perfect. Because a lot of it will be kind of going, what's that one startup lesson? Let's like get out the door, basically go into the wild to test out your idea. So I think those are some of the lessons that we've learned.
Absolutely agree with all of those, Sophia. And I think, at the core of all of this is that deep rooted belief that you have that will propel you, right? That will instigate the entire thing, because you've dreamed really big, and now like you just have this craving to like execute it, and you have to, right? I think that's so much of entrepreneurship. And especially when, you don't come from those types of backgrounds where you already had a friends and family round, for instance, or something like that to kick off. I find so much of it is just execution. So having this idea, and then, ideas are great. Everyone has ideas. And then like, how are you trying to, talk to the consumer right from the very beginning and really get to build it with them, right? Because that's to me the only way the companies of the future are going to succeed and have been. We can't just be building these new algorithms in a silo that we're not sure if it's going to actually help humanity or better the earth. Like we have to be working with our customers, right? So as soon as you can, just to be working with those founding families that you would have in your with your idea, right, or company. To try to get it off the ground. And then I think equally important is finding that initial team of believers that understand like your vision and want to lean in and think that this is my baby too, right? So that we can build it together. Because to Sophia's point, like bringing those strategic advisors around the table, maybe even more important, right, than the investors at the earliest days, so that you can have those experts to really lean on and to be able to learn from. So for us, I think in so many ways, it's just about getting out there and doing it to get those proof points and keep building and keep on keeping on, because if you believe it, you can see it come to fruition, right? If you just deeply believe and have that conviction.
Yeah, I love that. I love all the success that you guys have brought to Tiny Organics. We are out of time. So Betsy and Sophia, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Women in Retail Talks.
Thanks so much, Marie.
Thank you, Marie.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.
Join us for this year's Women in Retail Leadership Summit, being held October 11th to the 13th. Go to womeninretailsummit.com for our full event safety plan and to register to attend. We can't wait to see you there.